to select, to also develop evaluation criteria for the selection, and then to ultimately recommend to the board the top candidate recommended. And I have down here that I'm recommending for consideration that we also identify 2 alternatives or alternate candidates. So if the top candidate, let's face it, if Mama comes here and it's 120 degrees, he may say he don't want the job. It would be nice to have at least 2 candidates sitting in the wings to let him off. So,
or if Daddy comes here and says it's 120 degrees and she can't take the job.
Well, considering our candidates, that's an actual good comment. We've got several ladies. Also, administratively, we've put together a process that's been already provided to the staff here with a green light, and we'll be talking about that in detail. The focus of this meeting, this initial meeting, is to not discuss the administrative process in depth. That's pretty much established, but to go right to the content of the evaluation itself, to identify the skill sets and the proper value score of each skill set. So right now, we have 16 applicants that have put in for the advertised position in the last week. Of those, after vetting, we have the potential of 7 that have met the minimum qualifications, and we will be discussing the minimum qualifications to make sure that the vetting process was accurate.
What's the cutoff date for the applications?
There is none.
There is no definite cutoff.
The advertisement, according to the board's determination, would be to say that we'd like them in place by November, but there was no deadline for applications.
That's what I would thought.
Also, there's fuzzy schedule per the recommendation of Albert, so that if we actually have 2, 3 really good, strong candidates, we evaluate them, they have top scores, there's no reason that we can't, at that time, decide to initiate a telephone interview with those applicants, even though we may be receiving more. There's no reason to wait.
One of the things we might consider, because it sounds like we've said that the position is open until filled. There's no, okay.
Yeah. However, we've got.
But we don't want to get into a continuous cycle of reviewing candidates. So what we need to do, at least administratively, is say, all right, here's the pool that we're going to really look at, and then put late appliers into a reserve pool.
And that's easily done, and I think what's going to happen is by the end of this month, we're going to be at that juncture if we continue to get the applicants.
Well, Dean, and wouldn't it, at some point, you say you've got a point, and okay, as of August 31st, pick a number. That's the deadline. I mean, you got to stop.
We'll self-impose our deadline as we get the applicants.
Okay. The reason I don't think you need a deadline, Ron, is because you got to fill a job, and so you're up against two problems. One of them is, as people apply, they're not only applying here, they're applying elsewhere. So if we wait too long to tell them, yeah, we'll hire you, they may already have a job someplace else. And then secondly, we don't really care when someone applies. If he's a perfect candidate, it doesn't apply until the day before. I mean, we may be looking at 3 people and somebody sends in an application that looks really good. Why not evaluate it and hire that guy if that's appropriate? So what I'm really saying is, initially we kind of thought we would have a bunch of people apply, and then we would look around in that pool of applicants for the best one. Well, that's very fluid. And I was just talking with Pat Walsh down to the hospital, and he says, I'm evaluating some CFO candidates right now, and if we got a new application in today, HR would bring it to me, and that might be the guy we would hire, even though we've had other people come to Yuma and evaluate the city and consider it, you know. So I think that was what made me think we should be a little bit more flexible in.
But the only thing I'm saying, Howard, and I see what you're saying, but somewhere you got to say, this is as far as we're going to go, because we want to hire a person and get them on board. And so they could come
You're
in.
saying
and
we
get
kind of
started.
drop dead date. If we haven't found
Yeah.
anybody better than who applies.
Exactly.
So when you get down to point 4, somewhere between point 3 and point 4, we're going to be zeroing in, and that's when I think we would have sort of a natural discussion to say that, all right, we're not going to consider anybody else, we'll just hold it in reserve and focus on those folks. But also, one of the small things that we're dealing with is that we're in vacation season, and people may leave for a couple of weeks. They're not checking their emails. They're not doing certain things. If this search had started in, let's say, September, I'd be less concerned about it. But this is the natural time for people to take off with their families. So we want to leave ourselves a little bit of leeway so that if we get 3/4 of the way through the process and we find the
When
gym
did this
again
go out, though?
Last week.
last
Like,
week.
okay, so we're just on
And
the.
what I'd like to do, if the committee would allow, is I'd like to just go through the administrative process and then solicit any opinion or public comment at that time, and then get into the meat of the meeting. The key thing is there have been discussions that if we start getting more than 10 candidates, that's when you start putting the brakes on it, and maybe that's what we're talking about as far as structure goes or flexibility. If we have 10 good candidates, that's a digestible number to look at a telephone interview. Also, no more than 5 candidates to physically fly them in for an interview. And I'm recommending to the committee to use those just as a structural limitation to try to manage this thing. If we take a look, this is how this works. First of all, this entire process is independent of the director, the current director, or the staff. It is set up where all candidates submit an electronic application and resume to a URL that your chairman, I have access to. I've taken responsibility to vet every candidate, even though the database provides a minimum standard green light or red light. We have found instances where there was questions on whether or not that was correct. So the easiest way is to actually read the whole resume, and I have on at least 4 occasions sent an email out to the individual asking for clarification, and to be quite honest, they respond within 1 day, or if not the same day, real fast, every one of them. And they clarified the issue. In 3 cases, that allowed them to be minimally qualified. In 1 case, it clarified that they were not. So we vet. That means they get placed into 1 or 2 electronic files that are right now on my hard drive. You either make the minimum standards or you do not. If they meet the minimum standards, then upon, hopefully, the completion of this meeting where we're going to deal with the evaluation content, packages will be sent electronically to each of your homes or to your email. It will have the database cover letter, it'll have their cover letter, their statement, if they provided one, the resumes, and any and all clarification correspondence during the vetting process. So you will get all that, and an evaluation form that we'll be discussing in a little bit. The evaluation form is in Office 07 Microsoft Excel, so everybody should be able to just input that form, and then you send back the entire package with the evaluation form filled out. When you send it back to me, I take that and I record it, and I also print out your own report. So we're going to have an electronic file. We're also going to have a paper file for each of the candidates. Just start building packages. I have a form that I use for summary. We will summarize them, all 5 evaluated scores. Individual scores. We have 8 categories of experience that the board approved. So you'll have 8 scores plus a total. We're going to average it up and for each candidate, and then from that, the committee will be provided a sort. So you'll see who the top 10 candidates are from your own evaluations for the telephone interview, and then later on out of those, top 5 candidates or less for the actual physical interview. And from then, we should be able to select top candidates. Now, the focus of today basically is to acquaint ourselves with the evaluation form and the detail within. And that's really the discussion point, to make sure that for every category that was approved by the board, that we have the minimum requirement and the maximum requirement, and a score for each. And if we can do that today, guys, that's wonderful. That means that we can begin evaluation immediately.
Where in this process do you think we should do reference checks?
Reference checks were recommended to us to be done prior to the telephone interview. And then somebody recommended also before the personal interview because of the cost.
Well, there's a workload issue. If, let's say we decide to do 2 reference checks on each person on a telephone interview, that's 20 calls. I would recommend that, I think after we look at the paper and we talk to the person on the phone, that we should know enough that this is a yes or a no, and that we restrict our reference checks to our 5 or so people for the personal interviews.
What do you guys
You know, now electronically you can find so much about people that I recommend saving it to the final finals.
Sure. Okay. Is that agreeable?
What are you saying, the final 10, final 5?
No, whatever, I think you're talking about final 5.
Yes.
0.5,
Yeah.
and that, you know, if you
To
do it
do
for
20 reference checks, I don't know.
if you do it for your top candidate and the 2 alternates, I think that's sufficient, because this could become a huge
Now,
workload.
Sure.
the other thing is, when you get down, let's say you get down to 10, and you do your phone interviews, you can glean from that phone interview a weakness. Pretty much, in my experience in doing phone interviews, if you ask the right question, you can find out. If somebody is hesitant about answering or can't codify an answer somehow, then there's probably an issue there. So, the final 5, I do the background
So
check.
we can say for the minutes anyway that the consensus is the final 5 as far as which is cool.
I've been involved in the ones in the city and the county and the college, the AWC on some, and you can really glean a lot out of phone interviews. And it's just not feasible to take 10 people and fly them all in here, but you can get a pretty good idea of what somebody's temperature is by a good phone interview.
All right. So the key thing today is we're going to be looking at the evaluation matrix, looking at the 8 categories that the Board of Directors approved, and identify appropriate levels within each category from a score of 1, which would be minimally qualified, to a score of 4, which is walk on water. Also, I'm just interested in members' availability for telephone interviews during the month of July. I put that in at the last minute because we have a number of candidates which look like they're minimally qualified, and we're talking like 6 to 7 people. So the evaluation, if you guys evaluate within a week or so, we're going to have people, where we may want to do telephone interviews. So let's wait.
The better.
Yeah, so let's wait till the end of the meeting and we'll see what's best for everybody. Okay, now in your packet, I've provided, because it's just easier, and also so you can take your pens and write all over this. The evaluation form that's electronic has this on top, and then below it are the actual definitions of each of the qualification categories. So this is a historical document that will stay with the evaluation process. The first thing that you notice is we have the ability to write in the name, the address, their emails, their mobile, their cell phone number, who the evaluator is, which one of you evaluated and the date that you did it. And then this section here, you don't have to fill out because, to be quite honest, if they're not meeting the minimum qualifications, you're not going to get the package. But for historical reasons, I like that to have it per candidate. On the right-hand side is what you're going to be really filling out. So the 8 criteria that came out of the board essentially is education, general management, specific aviation management, security, which was, I think, a last-minute addition, business, finance, relations with the media and marketing, and then engineering expertise. What we've done is put together a matrix where we have the ability to define what minimum qualifications are and assign a score of 1. So if their resume shows that they're minimally qualified, you put a 1 in that block. That's all you do. If they have a master's degree, they're published, they're considered a subject matter expert, well, maybe we give them a 4. Right? That's dependent upon the definition of that level of expertise that we're going to get into in a minute. So if we agree on the definitions for these blocks, then when you do your evaluation, it's very easy. If they meet that definition or that criteria, just put a number in the box. Only one number per row. It's going to total up and give us a total score. If 5 people evaluate each individual, I have 5 scores. And I average by 5. And we get a score for that individual. Also, my summary sheet that I use will have not only 5 scores, but it'll have these 8 criteria. And the reason I'm adding that is because if everybody puts a 4 for somebody that's totally qualified, one person puts a 2, there's a question. And I like that to be vetted between the committee members because maybe somebody missed something. So there'll be a double check for issues like that. But if everybody's within a point of each other, good enough.
Yeah, I agree with you, because if you have one person and somebody that says it's either really low or really high, that's outside what everybody else.
It raises a flag. Right, exactly. It raises a flag, and you know what? It may be the reverse, where somebody puts in a 4, we all put 2s. They saw something we didn't, or they understand an aspect. You know, and if anybody has a question during the evaluation process, you get the package, you get the form. You have a question in that resume or package that you need answered, you send me an email, I will immediately go to the candidate, get the answer, and provide it to you. So we do have the ability to ask for clarification during the evaluation. Okay.
Dean, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I think what you've done, so what we do to put the numbers in here is go to
The definition.
the definition.
And that's really what we should be discussing today. Is to make sure we got the right definition and the right whole.
This is, I think what's been accomplished here so far is that it's going to increase the innovator reliability because we're all working on the same definition.
And independent.
And not supposing what we think other people think. So, excellent.
I'm trying to make it where everybody does independent, so Albert doesn't bias me, and I don't bias
I
Albert.
would not do that.
Albert would never
Okay.
do that.
So what I did basically is this section is actually directly below the matrix on the same form. It's just so small, we're going to break it up into pieces to look at it. But what we have is essentially you have 8 categories, the same categories as on the evaluation portion. You have 4, basically you have 4 areas to put in a value, and you have a definition of what that value is. So we have got 8 categories, 4 levels of competence per category, or a hierarchy of competence, and then 4 values, going from 1 through 4. Now, that's wonderful, but here's the key. These are the first 2. And what I'd like is input from not only the public, but from you fellas, on the detail. So, under education, the minimum qualification that was agreed to by the board is a bachelor's degree. Didn't talk about major, just they got to have a bachelor's degree. So I gave them a 1. Then a preferred was in aviation management, engineering, or public administration. Okay. Then top of the line, if you will, not only preferred but I guess desired, was that the last one, was a master's degree in those areas, including civil engineering. Okay. And I had to come up with something for number 4. So I put in professional publication or considered a subject matter expert in their field of expertise. And they got to prove it. Like, did you give talks at a conference? Do you have a doctorate? Have you, something that would show that you're at a higher level. Now, guys, I'm telling you, I'm winging on some of this. So if you have a better idea or something that we need to adjust.
So for this one, a couple of observations. If I think a person is a number 4, that means that they have met
Inclusive of
everything and that.
or at least the major part of it.
Yeah.
What if a person has a bachelor's and they're published?
They could go straight to 4, yes, if they're considered an
But then
SME.
that means you're not subsuming that they have a master's. So what you have is a person with a master's and published gets a 4, a person with a bachelor's
He could
and
have a
published
bachelor's
gets
and
4.
publish something in engineering, which really doesn't.
I'm sorry?
He could have a bachelor's and be published in some engineering profession.
And that's not
It has
uncommon.
nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how would you clean it up? You want to have this in aviation only?
I'd waited on the first 3. Or
Yeah,
first
I
2.
waited on the first 3.
Yeah, first 3.
So,
Kick out 4.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
They don't all have to have 4 categories.
Right. Well, I mean, you could have 4, but they're gonna have to be 1, 2, and 3, where you say, hey,
well,
I'm at
a
3.
lot of
and
these,
I go to 4.
it's additive. But for this one, it's a good point. You could say a BA or BS, like number 2, okay, plus published. And that gives you 4.
I've got documents that I've copyrighted,
So what-
and I have a bachelor's, but that didn't give me experience.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the published part of it.
Yeah.
Well, okay,
I'm
well,
not
that's
sure
more
that's so
specific.
critical, very honest.
Well, I think 2 things are going to come up. Very quickly, we're going to say, is getting 4 points in education more or less important than getting 4 points in aviation management?
Oh, yeah, see, I didn't want to get into weighting because that would be my own personal.
One way that you could clean this up,
Yeah.
one possibility is for published, give it 1 point.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you say if they have a BA and BS, they get the BA and BS 1 point plus 1 point for publications. If they have the very specific BA and BS, they get a 2 plus 1 point.
So
And if they have the masters, they get a 3 plus 1 point, then you're up to 4
Okay, so we can say plus 1.
for,
So
for
that's like a
publications.
Yeah, so we'll give them a plus 1
Instead
extra.
of a 4, we just a plus 1.
And what I'll do is I'll put in plus 1 extra so that,
Yeah, add 1 point to any score that you give. The other thing, and this is one of those little pieces of knowledge that only probably somebody like me has. Embry-Riddle, NAU, ASU, they now have BASs, Bachelors of Applied Sciences. And some of them are very specific in aeronautics. So what we might want to do, rather than say BA, BS, we could just say bachelor's degree.
yeah, because
And-
most of the candidates, believe it or not, are Embry-Riddle.
Yeah.
If
And that,
they're working local.
if you want to stay in this type of, location, that's Emery-Riddle, the hell is what.
Oh, yeah.
I wish I had.
Then after this meeting, ask me the difference between a BA, a BS, and a BAS. I won't bore you with it right now. I didn't want to disinclude those people because
Okay.
they have a very valuable degree.
Okay, so we'll change this to bachelor's degree along the
And that to
board.
bachelor's.
And we're going to change this to add 1 point.
Yeah.
Okay, and that'll work?
It works for me.
Any problem with this, what we're gonna do?
The only thing, Dean, that I would like to have the option to work on, when we get up to that floor level, if you say published, I want to know what it is.
Oh, you have to show documented evidence.
I mean, I want to read it,
Yeah.
or I want to know
Okay.
how well they, or
One, they
what
have to
they've
show
written about.
documented evidence of it, so you should be able online to go right to it.
Yeah.
You know, and if you want to see if you cannot get or find the documented, we can certainly ask for clarification. Say,
And ask them to send us a copy.
Are we saying that
I'm not
if they're
saying Ron
published
wants it.
anything in any field, we can get the plus? Or we're saying,
I
we're really only.
That's where you want to work on the professional publication or evidence of knowledge of special subject matter in the field of
Aviation.
aviation, airport management,
Airport management.
something like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking it should be.
You
See
know,
how easy this is, guys? It's already done. Next.
If he's an
I have
engineer,
no problem with that.
he's going to do it in the field of
Yeah, in
engineering of some
engineering.
type.
but you know, I'm not sure that we want to see a publication from a BFA, Bachelor's of Fine Arts, in underwater
That's what I'm
basketball.
thinking, it should be something germane,
Yeah.
give extra points, should be something germane to this job.
Okay, done. Next.
Okay.
All right.
Holy sorry, these guys do it.
All right. Well, that's,
Oh, that's a $5 fine.
okay.
know it was on.
General management. General management, it was set that the minimum criteria is 2 years, experience in management. So we've got senior management experience, including position, description, development, knowledge of applicable federal laws, particularly ADA, EEOC, etc. Contract administration, obviously, because we deal with leases and service contracts. Then, for 2 points, you're not a rookie, 3 years plus. Then, getting down to 3, it's 3 years plus a senior military leadership experience, particularly in aviation. And then 3 years plus to 4, joint use airport expertise as a tiebreaker for 4 points.
There's not many of those.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Really
We're gonna see a lot of
We've got a
these,
number
that's fine.
we've got a number of applicants that made it down to this level so far. We don't have anybody that's
So
currently
Dean-
at a joint use.
In number 3, you said plus experience in a senior military
Oh, it should have
leadership
least.
position, and then you said verbally, particularly in
It should be
aviation.
aviation.
You know, if that's what you feel, let's write it down. I agree with it.
Yeah, I should have
What
written.
on 3 you wanted aviation?
Yeah, aviation leader.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, because pork chopping. That's point.
The Army runs on its stuff.
Yeah, okay. Any questions there? Any comments?
You've been in that world. What do you consider senior military? What rank?
04 or above.
It has to be an O, can be
Major,
what about
or
enlisted?
E7 and above.
Okay, all right.
Because you change
Yeah,
you change uniforms, you belong to the club.
Yeah, but, yeah. and
By the
also-
way, for the record, for this video, I'd like to say that my son-in-law just made gunnery sergeant, so he is now a senior leader.
Paid overtime.
04 is
Hey,
major.
I want to see that on YouTube, by the way.
04 is major?
It probably will be.
Okay. What is that in major?
That's a lieutenant.
Which branch of
04
service?
is a lieutenant commander. Yeah, and you know what? In the Navy, you don't get scrambled eggs on your ground. It's a commander.
Oh.
Because we're one more pay grade. You got to wait 5 more years to change it.
Cost-cutting efforts.
Serious. Prior to sequester. Okay, let's go to aviation management then, which is, we're leaving the generic. 2 years of commercial airport management, operations or services, minimum requirement, you got to work at an airport as some type of manager. Then we move on to senior management, which includes assistant director, director, or the manager of operations, plus demonstrated knowledge of Part 139 of the FAA regulations, because that seemed to be a really major issue at the general board. So we got to put it right in there somewhere. I'd rather have it at the lower level because it seems so important. 3, we added an FAA pilot's license with flight hours, because to me, to be quite honest, guys, I can pass a pilot's test, but that don't mean I've sat in a seat. So I wanted to see with flight hours. That separates the wheat from the chaff. And then for 4, there was some discussion for military pilot that could bomb and has got hard points and all that. I took that out. And I said, plus military pilot or military aviation sector leadership experience. The reason is because if you're a senior tower manager or trainer for tower operations, if you're an S3, which is an operations officer that does all the planning, or a bombardier navigator for long hauls, it's good enough. You know, you understand aviation and the problems there that lie in.
You may not want to restrict this to military. You may have, people with civilian power experience. That kind of.
You want to, well, the only reason, Albert, it was separated from the civilian was because in the discussions of the board and in the personnel committee, that seemed to be a real distinction because of the joint use here, that they wanted to separate the military from the civilian. Now, are you talking, do you want to add that to the 3, or do you want to add it to the 4?
I'm saying in the 4, we're giving an extra point, for military experience. We may not want to restrict it just to military.
Okay. So plus military pilot aviation sector leadership experience and or what?
Yeah. We may. Well, I'm just saying that there could be civilians that have similar experiences.
Well,
I don't know.
Say a commercial pilot, one of the guys going flying the big guys.
Well, that's FAA pilot's license.
Yeah, he's got a fun. But I'm just saying that if he's been flying for the big guys, we may be making up qualifications for people who are never going to fly.
I don't have anybody that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Are we nitpicking here?
Yeah, okay.
In looking at that, why don't the years of experience go up with the points?
They can.
A person that has 2 years on the job could be a job hopper.
Yeah. So
You could have a guy that had 4 jobs in the last 7 years, and he would qualify under having 2 years experience somewhere.
That's good. So
Or you could have an incompetent person that's been on the job for the last 2 years.
Let's not get personal.
So we can make this 2 years because it added the
Yeah,
FAA,
yeah.
and this can be
Another
3
year.
years, 3 years plus, 3 years plus.
Yeah.
That's not, that's a good point. So, other than that, you want to just leave it as is and see?
That's right.
I don't,
You've looked at these applications.
I don't have anybody that fits that civilian side.
What we're doing here, is that kind of fit with the kind of applicants we're getting?
Yeah.
Okay. We might as well make it kind of specific to the applicants we got in a way to sort them out.
We got several managers at airports that we're putting in too. I mean, I don't know how big they are.
Okay.
However, they talked with me.
Acton International.
Yeah, in fact, after the meeting, I got a couple of questions. Maybe you or somebody that's been around.
Lower Botswana
No, I
bleed off airport.
Yeah, actually, I got one of those. They didn't make the cut. Okay.
Well, I think it's really critical in this aviation management that we get into Part 139 familiarity, because
That's serious.
that is what
That
this
gets down
airport
to-
is.
That's why I started it too, and just kept it going.
And that's where our grants come from, that's critical. So,
That's kind of like this all-encompassing.
And there was a number of people that said that they dealt with grants, and when I asked about 139, they came back saying, I don't know anything about that. So it was local stuff, but it wasn't 139, so that disqualified the program.
yeah.
So one guy came back and he actually wrote OPP. Oops, no, I don't have any experience. So, God bless him. He was up front. Okay, security aviation, security mainly because it's a joint base. We do have security concerns. Very interested to see whether or not they have general knowledge, they should, on risk management and security procedures, just because they work at an airport. Then for 2, general knowledge plus managerial level knowledge of fiber optic IT and server security. That's getting to be a larger and larger slice, particularly with the DCC and having a fiber optic network with proprietary information. We better have somebody here, not necessarily an IT guy, but somebody that's very familiar with management of IT and the security parameters thereof. Level 3 is all of that stuff, plus experience working with military security protocols and audits. If anybody's worked, even not necessarily a joint use airport, but maybe an airport where the Air Guard or other military folks fly in periodically, there are security protocols they have to adhere to. And then obviously up at 4, all of that neat stuff, plus joint commercial military airfield security, where you've got some big boys that are sitting there all the time. If there's any changes you so desire, let me know.
Let me ask you this question here. We've had several FAA audits dealing with the FAA directly. Where are we fitting that in? Is that into aviation management?
If it's in regards to the security teams that come in, that would be on
both. We've had the airfield management team that comes in.
Robert, you got it there in management aviation. If you look on 2, 3, and 4.
So we would sort of include that in those areas there.
I would think so.
Yeah.
But we're trying to say how much knowledge, how have you worked with FAA in this country?
right, because the key is
I think it's implicit.
if it's
Well, it's more than just FAA regulations. They have a whole series of teams that run around the country disrupting activity, helping out.
I like your first comment. It's closer.
and so we're going to kind of include that sort of thing.
Yeah, when I put in problem resolution in regards to FAA knowledge, essentially I was trying to work around that audit issue. In other words, if they notice that there's an FAA regulation issue, whether it's audited or they find it as an internal, that you have enough awareness to correct it and correct it. So we can certainly amend that item that's in brackets. And we can even put some verbiage in there in regards to respond to audits. And,
Yeah, you might have to get the language from the staff, but we've had a number of dealings with the airport safety team. I can't remember what they call it, safety resolution team or something like that. It created major problems for us in terms of handling it and finally getting it resolved.
the safety.
And it's not just the regulations, but it was the, well, they have the airport safety team is one of them. It comes around about once a year.
I'll tell you, if I ran into a person, individual, and he or she had an association with the FAA, they'd go up in my book real quick.
Sure.
Just because they know the system.
Part 139, does that deal with safety or is it strictly something else?
It's kind of a
Part
general
139 is
catch-all.
commercial scheduled airplane operations.
Right.
It's the whole
The whole enchilada, so
Yeah.
that would include safety?
It includes everything involving commercial airplanes.
Okay,
All
so then
the
maybe during the
airfield,
telephone
everything.
interview, we would ask for clarification in regards to safety or some of these other areas.
Well, that's why they've come in and said, all, our taxi lights and all of this are not right. And
There's a whole bunch of things that are divided into parts. Part 91, for instance, is private pilots.
Okay.
So.
Because some of the resume is only allowed to be so long.
135
And they're
is flight
shotgunning stuff in there. They have Part 139, they had 91 and a couple of them.
Yeah.
It may be more specific to a telephone interview. If they say they're aware of 139 for so many years, maybe that's as much as we can get on paper.
Well, maybe.
I think your point is valid. There's a point at which we're going to be doing so much work looking for so many different things. This is an interview question. Tell us.
It's a good one.
We allow them to expand on their experience, tell their story. And this would be a good lead question. Tell us about your work with the FAA.
Now, do we want to, you were saying anybody that worked for the FAA, I guess that's an interview question.
Yeah.
You know,
You're
okay.
answering your own question.
Let's quit.
Here,
Let's
Here, just, are we done?
We hope they don't confuse it with the FFA.
Oh, jeez.
FFA,
Yeah, so is there any additional concerns or changes you'd like within
It's
the
progressive.
security side?
I mean, there's a linear relationship there. That's perfect.
We do have 139 in there at all three levels.
This is 2 o'clock in the morning, right?
Yeah. Okay, next, business. Business versus financial. It was just, the board said you got to have at least 2 years' experience in managing profit and loss.
I found that one amusing.
Yeah,
I know a lot of guys that are masters at managing loss.
yeah, we have a great deal of expertise
If
just
they
in
manage
here.
it well.
They get away with murder. You know?
Yeah.
They just want to see if you know the word profit, what it means.
Yeah, so therefore, that's why they only get a 1, and as they discuss their bankruptcy. So, 3 years experience in that, plus knowledge of not-for-profit organizations and the general accounting practices thereof, because that's what we are, and all the bookkeeping that our comptroller does is all using those accounting practices. You better know about them. 3 years, plus all that neat stuff.
Dance music.
That's $10 now.
Yeah. He's going to be buying
The man ain't got no culture. Okay. 3 years experience, all that same stuff, plus experience that they can demonstrate in implementation of strategic plans, demonstrating business growth and productivity. A lot of these folks, it's very interesting reading the resumes. They're in moderate-sized airports and really don't tout how they've grown them. They don't even tout in today's environment how they've maintained the level of revenue, and that's going to be a big interview question.
Yeah.
Right? There's a couple of them though that really pushed how well they've grown, and they've got additional rental hangars and spaces. So that's really interesting to me, because I'd be pushing anything positive.
The real bottom line of a good manager is, can you manage during the tough times?
That's right.
Anybody can manage during the really...
Exactly right. And we do have a strategic plan. It's due for renewal, but we are going to have a multi-year plan, and you need to be able to manage with that. You need to be able to report annually on how we're doing, and come up with recommended alternatives if a particular tactic or growth area doesn't look like it's panning out.
So an interesting interview question here would be, what is better now than when you first got here? Tell us about your business practices, whatever, and
Well,
see how they respond.
And it's going to be right in there. So they got to show a little bit of that to get some points.
Because
And then,
I don't think we're looking for somebody who just treads water.
exactly. And then the last under business is it would be nice if somebody has experience in tort law as it regards to airport contracts and services and activities. That's self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Okay. On the financial side, the minimum that the board talked about was 2 years experience in managing the implementation of grants. Notice we say management, not writing it or proposing it, but actually receiving the money and managing it, which sometimes can be more difficult than getting it. Then we go to 3 years experience in managing, and we go up to the 5 million plus mark. Then, as the board and both the personnel committee and the board talked about, is we'd like to see somebody that actually can write it or has significant experience in overseeing it, so that if the writer is gone, you're not dead in the water. You can take over, and you can write the proposal. So not only do you manage it, but you've successfully obtained it, and now we're getting up to around 10 million bucks, and then 5 years experience going up to about 20. Some of the airports that I've looked at that are slightly larger than ours, this is where they're going to, and that's a great goal. I don't know if we're going to see too many candidates to that level.
5 million, 10 million, 20 million, over what period of time? Because you have somebody that comes in,
I don't think it makes any difference.
oh, I think it does.
The reason I say
You
I
could
don't
have
think it
somebody
makes
that
any
comes in the first 2 years of being at the airport, pulls in $10 million, versus somebody who's been
Well, is that an
sitting.
interview question? Is it
but-
recent or not?
Well, but that's why you need a timeline.
Yeah.
Getting $10 million in your first 2 years at an airport versus getting $20 million and you have 25 years experience.
That's a good point.
I think that's a good point. However, the way these grants work, if we got a grant to redo the long runway, it likely would be a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing.
Right.
And
And maybe that's the only thing they've ever done at another airport.
Yeah.
And so,
but it wouldn't diminish. I can see your point.
Yeah, when it comes to this, the two areas that the board discussion focused on, and what I was trying to deal with here, is one, they want somebody that has successfully not only managed but obtained grants, and they were looking for grants that over their tenure exceeded, at least equal to or exceeded the success here.
so I think one way to solve this
Yeah.
is to have a specific interview question that says,
Oh.
describe the grants that you've gotten over what period of time.
Or a timeline. I mean.
Yeah, and that way we don't have to get involved in it. So when I say timeline, I don't think we need to quantify it here, as long as we explore it
Now, I will say the
with some follow-up.
applicants that we've received to date, out of 16, we got about 7 that meet the minimum qual. And all of them have about anywhere from 5 to 6 years on the job. I don't see anybody with a 20-year plus, worked at Chicago O'Hare. They're all about 5 or 6 years in one
The roof
place.
leaks there.
And if they have grant experience, they talk about it in their resumes as far as we've gotten a couple of these grants and I'm working on those, and they deal with construction or runway. All right. I have gone back and asked for clarification when it was too generic, saying specifically, have you gotten grants for runway construction and or infrastructure at the airport? That killed one candidate and it elevated another. So we are asking for some clarification.
Good.
But 5 years experience, the majority, the average number of years on the job of any of the last job that they had is averaging anywhere from 5 to 6 years. So we're not
On
going.
that particular position.
Yeah.
Now, we've limited this to grants. Are we interested in budgets?
That's a good question.
Or is that an interview
See,
question? or-
well, now, if you're interested in managing a budget of a certain size, that can go under business.
Mhm.
You see? That wasn't discussed, to my recollection, it wasn't really discussed at the general board or the personnel committee.
You do have a comment up here about experience in managing profit and loss. That's your budget.
Basically, yes.
Okay.
I didn't fix a dollar
We
on
changed the word, but that's basically what it is.
Okay.
Okay.
I would say 2
Let's
years
leave it there.
of experience in successful budget management. That's just a thought.
Versus unsuccessful. That's why he's looking for a job.
Yeah.
We just soon pass on.
Or
that.
just managing budget.
Financial management, whatever you want.
Yeah, financial management, rather than profit loss. And then that solves the problem of whether or not of where to put budget.
Well, also
without
that
covering.
allows you to ask questions in regards to capital budget versus operating.
I could argue I could stay within budget and lose a hell of a lot of money.
Oh, hell yeah.
Well, that's true.
Okay.
And like I said, the next thing that comes up is under growth in airports, let me reserve that. Let's move on.
Okay, media relations. There was talk about having at least 2 years' experience in dealing with the media. I think general marketing, that should have been marketing there. drop that line down. So it's basically marketing the business, marketing the authority, and dealing with public relations and the media. Gave him a point because he got 2 years, the famous 2 years. 3 years, and then 3 years plus success in multi-use aviation, general aviation, commercial, defense, industrial, park marketing. Because a lot of these airports, they're not just commercial. They have an aviation, industrial sector to it. And then I guess the last one, we put in the joint airport shared experience.
I've got one I'd like to add under this head. And the term is community involvement. And the reason I bring that up is I'll give you a good, what I think is a good reference. When we tried to get Delta in here, we brought a whole bunch of players from the community around this table, and we put together a quick and dirty package of economic development, the chamber, the county, the city. We had all the players around the table. When that guy came in from Delta and we put that program out there, boom, he knew this community was behind that program. And that's one of the reasons we got him in there. If it would have been just an airport aviation issue, I don't think we'd have sold that program.
So should we put that under 1 or 2?
And, well, I think it should be another comment. Community involvement after public relations coordination.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the second reason I bring that up is that this airport is part of a transportation package as far as I'm concerned in economic development. People ask me about public transportation, they ask me about railroad, they ask me about everything, and I can refer to this organization from aviation and public transportation on a different level.
So if we put it up here, it will automatically spool down.
Yeah.
into each of the
It
areas.
should just carry all
Oh,
the way
yeah.
down.
The other thing,
Well, either that
It's done.
or put that in the forum. And so if you've had community involvement, that bumps you up.
well, here's another example. That I feel that the airport manager should be involved in the port, at least sit in on the meetings of the port, and other transportation issues that come along. ADOT. You guys have projects that interweave with things that are going on in the community.
Okay, that's interesting. Engineering.
I want to, I guess what I'm saying is I'd like to see in a candidate, somebody that's willing to reach out in the community and be visible and integrate and be a partner.
I think it's a very good point.
In my
particularly
organization,
as the
I only have 2
city
people.
grows.
Yeah.
I need partners.
For your successor next
So
year.
Exactly.
how are you gonna handle that one?
I'm going to put it in the first one, and I'm going to carry it all the way through.
Community involvement.
Because that shows it's important.
You can change the term, that's just the term I
Yeah,
get.
I like
you
it.
should show on the person's resume their community involvement.
Yeah.
And a couple of the resumes actually demonstrate that. One
If
guy
a person
particularly, I
doesn't
think, is
become involved in
Superior
anything,
Airports
that's
manager.
really not good.
Works. That's another. Okay. Engineer, 2 years of experience in project management, construction type engineering. Then we get more specific, runway paving, facilities management, repair, renovation, putting in porta potties. Then we get into a degree in civil or mechanical engineering because the board said that that's more valuable if they actually have a degree in it, civil or mechanical. And then down at the bottom, it's additional years. They're just longer in it than up on top.
I'll tell you what, if you have a degree in engineering, you sure skew the points real quick.
Big time. Big time. And that's because...
I'm not real comfortable with that. really,
Yeah,
honestly.
well, the reason, I guess, for this particular airport is you normally, if you have a civil job out there, you go out and buy yourself an engineer to do the preliminaries. And I guess here, we don't do that. So we have the people that oversee it in our sub-management categories have degrees in engineering.
I find it kind of almost amusing that the difference, what's the difference between 2 years experience in runway paving and 3 years?
More
Yeah, I'm just trying to
You
find
paving
some.
3 years in a row?
Well,
More
I mean,
asphalt.
2 years and 3 years plus.
Yeah, I understand. It's kind of,
And I must admit, you gotta remember that,
A lot of our projects are
the
multi-year
runway projects here.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The FAA is hell on wheels when it comes to paving runways.
No, I understand.
It's totally unlike building roads.
Yeah, you can have a 4-year project and still not be done. That
They have-
was
they
my
have,
only
uh,
concern.
Look at the big parallels out there, it's a continuous process.
Anyway, it was
Yeah,
just like,
the-
you know, are you right out of college and you got a job and you started a taxiway? Or did you do 6,000 feet of tarmac that can handle a Russian plane?
Masters in aviation and asphalt.
Aviation asphalt.
And asphalt.
So, is there a better way to say this, or do you want to leave it?
You know, the only, I like it, but I think for number one, we might take the plus out, just
Oh,
say 2
okay.
years. And this is a thought.
I have no problem with that.
That way it
Yeah,
clearly differentiates between
Gotcha.
the rest of the levels.
Copy was better.
Okay. That seems reasonable.
I'll tell you, just so you guys understand, that should I find somebody that I think is really competent, and they're not an engineer, I'm still gonna move them up. Because, well, no, I think it's a biased thing, it really is.
It is.
And my experience with engineers has not been good.
I sense that.
You know, I mean, as far as social people, they're, in general, engineers don't come along as most social
Oh, I fully
people.
agree, being a mechanical engineer.
Now you've offended-
That's why I'm talking.
That's really weird.
You've offended about 25 good people in town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
You know,
think this
buy
day
me
and
a
age,
beer and I'll
though,
tell you a story that goes right along with that.
So,
this day and age to find non-degreed people in this kind of business.
You know that.
If we get one, I guess we'll evaluate.
I got one. I actually got one. He didn't make the cut.
He was not
Based on,
He was non-degree, 1,000 years experience, wonderful guy, best thing since sliced bread. Probably OJT, runs a consulting firm. I requested his resume, he declined, and he gave me his summary statement. And just for that arrogance, I disqualified.
You know,
He pissed me off. Because I asked for clarification. You know, I said, I'd like a full resume and I'd like some academic qualifications. I got a summary statement back.
I'll tell you something real quick.
I think one of the important things, I've said on a whole bunch of these, and when you get down to the one-on-one or one-on-group interviews, that's where you can drill down and find, okay, the guy's had 12 years management experience. So then you can ask questions about, you know, what are your people skills and how do you resolve
Exactly.
a conflict and those kind of things. And you can get a lot out of somebody that way. The guy could be an excellent engineer, but not a good people person or not a good manager. In this job, what's the staff do? How many staff?
Yeah, well, I'm talking you got the big
How
five.
many staff?
Well, yes.
Yeah, but he's responsible for everybody,
Really?
which is what, 25?
Total staff?
Yeah.
25, 30 is a goal.
I ran a car dealership with 100 people. The dynamics were unbelievable. Across different departments and so forth, and the issues that I was confronted with 100 employees, yeah, that's what put me out of the business. It wasn't the business, it was the people problems.
That's always where the problem is.
I got two things real quick, and then I think we're running out of stuff to talk about. First thing is if I can make these changes tonight, and then within the next 48 hours, you will receive packages. I will send you an email for every candidate, so you're not going to get things mixed up. They'll be with an evaluation form updated for the changes that everybody's agreed to. And at your leisure, do your evaluation, print it out at your leisure. Take a look at it, eval, put it right in the paper, send it back to me electronically, and I will begin to summarize the results. once all the candidates have been evaluated and we have a summary, I'll immediately contact you and we'll discuss whether or not we go straight to telephone interviews or do we need to have a meeting. I think we ought to stay pretty flexible.
Hopefully, if this goes like many other searches, you're going to have a third, and a third.
Yeah.
One third that, and then a third that you probably want to discuss, and then a third that clearly.
Right now, 16 applicants, not including Fred Flintstone, that was our example. You've got 6 minimum qualified individuals, possibly 7. I'm waiting on
So
clarification.
you're gonna send us the minimal,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay.
And now, please understand that, and for clarity purposes, if any of y'all want to take a look at the packages for the people that didn't make the minimum quals, you want to review that just as a double check?
I would really like to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can do that. I can send you a separate package, and you can take a look at some of those folks, or all of them. Just as
If
a double
Albert's,
check.
if Albert's going to do it, then I don't want to. I think that's sufficient.
Yeah.
I agree with
I
that.
don't want to look at
Okay.
that. These are the ones that are already.
So Albert, you've
Just-
self-appointed.
But also for public record, we're not throwing anything out. There'll be 2 separate folders, the
Right.
green light, the red light, so
Yeah,
that when
I'd
it's
like
all
to do
done,
that.
the entire package goes in here as a record.
Yeah.
Just to be,
Let me bring up one other thing. We're moving at this point, then on to the telephone interview. We probably should give some thought to how we're going to do that.
See, that was my second point out of 2. I'd like, other than myself, I'd like at least 2 y'all or 3 of y'all get together and come up with some, using your expertise, Ken, come up with a series of questions, which would be generic to all. And then, obviously, every one of us would have a unique question or 2 driven by the resume at hand. You might ask for clarification. I might ask for something. You may ask for something totally different. And then it would be nice to have a couple of those wonderful management questions that are kind of like overreaching. Like, if you have to evict somebody, how would you do it? If you have,
Wouldn't that be nice to know?
if I could tell you, but I'm not running. Also, if you have personnel conflicts, how have you handled it in the past, or you give them a situation and say, how would you resolve it? Stuff like